Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're getting into something deeper today. This isn't a gear review, it's not a tactics breakdown. This one's about the hard-earned wisdom that only comes from putting boots to dirt, from sweating through the quiet places, and from choosing to listen when the mountain starts to speak. Because out here, where the trail fades, where the road ends, and the ridge lines stretch further than your legs want to carry you, you learn quick. This world doesn't hand out favors. The wild doesn't care how inspired you were at the truck. It doesn't care about your Instagram quotes or how motivated you felt back at the gym. Once you're out here, it's you versus the elements, you versus your own thoughts, and you versus whatever truth the mountain is ready to reveal. And if you're not paying attention, if you're too busy charging ahead or trying to force your own agenda, you're going to miss it. You'll miss the real reason we come out here into the wild in the first place. But if you slow down, if you actually listen, the wilderness becomes something else entirely. It stops being just a proving ground and starts becoming a teacher. And the things it teaches you, they don't stay behind on the trail. They come home with you, into your marriage, into your parenting, into your business, into your mindset, how you handle adversity. This isn't just about elk. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The way we hunt is often the way we live. And if you pay close attention to how you respond to challenge out here in the wild, it'll show you how you respond to challenge back there in the real world, where the stakes feel even higher. That's why this episode is so important, because the 5 lessons I'm about to share with you don't come from books. They weren't borrowed from podcasts or clipped from YouTube shorts. They were learned the hard way, mile after mile, season after season, setback after setback. They were earned in soaked boots, through missed shots, busted stalks, late night packouts, and days where I didn't want to get out of the sleeping bag. They were earned on days when I lost something much bigger than a tag. And every one of them stuck with me, not because they were inspirational, but because they were true. Here's what you can expect in this episode. If you're looking for tips and tactics to be a better backcountry hunter, you're still going to get that here, because these lessons aren't abstract, they're practical. They show up in how you hunt, how you train, how you show up. But I want to take it a step further, because I've seen what happens when a guy starts to live these lessons, not just out in the woods, but in daily life. His marriage gets stronger, his business gets clearer, his kids see someone they can model, and when life throws storms, and it will, he doesn't fold. He holds. That's what I want for you. That's what this brand, Backbone Unlimited, is about. We're going to take our time with each of these 5 lessons today. Each one has a story behind it, a real moment that made it stick, and each one has a tactical application for the backcountry and for real life. That's what makes this a Backbone Unlimited episode. It's not just about talking tough. It's about building character that holds up when things get hard, whether that's on a hunt, at home, or in your own head. So get ready to go deep. These are the 5 backcountry lessons that changed the way I hunt, the way I think, and the way I lead my life. Lesson number 1, endure the storm. Some lessons don't come in the sun. They don't show up when things are smooth, comfortable, and perfect. They come when the sky turns black, the temperature drops, and everything in you wants to quit. This lesson is one of them. It was mid-September. I was solo, around 10 miles deep, and had been chasing a herd bull for 3 straight days. I had him patterned, morning wallow, midday bed, evening feed. Felt like I was closing in. Everything felt right until it didn't. Out of nowhere, storm blew in. I'm not talking light rain or a stiff breeze. I'm talking hail, freezing wind, fog so thick you couldn't see 10 yards. That that type of high mountain chaos that makes you question why you even came. I had every reason to pull out, every excuse lined up. My gear was soaked, visibility was shot, no shelter, miles from camp, and I almost did quit. But something in me said stay. I layered up, crawled under a thick patch of subalpine fir, and just waited. There wasn't any calling, there was no glassing, no movement, there was nothing to do, just me, the storm, and a whole lot of silence. And that evening, right after the weather broke, the sun split the clouds into this golden light. It got beautiful post-storm that we've all experienced. The world turned quiet, and out of the timber, like nothing had happened, that bull stepped out. He was feeding calmly, he was unbothered, right where I'd hoped he'd be. Next morning, I was able to finally make a plan, got in, killed him, clean shot, around 35, 36 yards. But that wasn't the real win. The real win came from learning something that stuck with me ever since. You don't always have to conquer the storm. Sometimes you just have to outlast it. Here's the backcountry truth. Survival is strength. Out there, the strongest things don't panic. The biggest trees don't snap when the wind comes. They bend. The elk don't bolt when lightning cracks. They hold tight, conserve energy, wait it out. They don't waste effort on fear. And the guys who kill year after year, they've got that same quiet strength. They don't flinch at adversity. They don't freak out when things don't go to plan. They absorb it. They adapt. Not because they're fearless, but because they've learned it. They learned if you can stay grounded in the middle of chaos, the odds shift in your favor. Life storms hit harder. Some storms don't happen at 10,000 feet. Some hit you at home, the ones that rattle your foundations, the ones that change you. I've been through a few. Losing my oldest son to suicide, it was the kind of pain you can't train for. There's no gear, no tactic, no prep plan that shields you from that level of grief. There's just the storm. And in those moments, I remembered what the mountains taught me. Stay your ground. You can't thrash about. It's not going to help. Don't flee. Let it pass through. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to look strong. You just have to hold. Because sometimes surviving is the victory. Here's how this lesson shows up on every hunt for me. When the weather turns bad, you don't automatically bail. When the bulls go quiet, you don't panic and leave. When your plan falls apart, you've got to stay calm and just recalibrate. When nothing is going right, you got to be the guy who doesn't fold. A lot of bulls get killed by guys who just stay out one more hour than everybody else. Because the elk don't vanish, they don't just shift. And if you're still there when things settle, you're in a position to capitalize. Let's bring this one home. When your relationship hits a rough patch, hold steady. When business dries up, you got to stay in the fight. When grief knocks you down, don't chase and escape. You just got to breathe. When life gets heavy, root in discipline, not just your emotions. I'm not saying be emotionless. I'm saying, be anchored. Let the storm pass through you, not define you. Because no matter how big it feels, it will pass. And when it does, you'll still be standing. And that changes you. It gives you something solid to build on for the next time. The backcountry will test you with storms, not just to break you, but to show you that you're tougher than you think. And once you know that, you carry that strength into every area of your life. When the winds pick up, you don't flinch, you don't flee, you don't break, you endure the storm. Lesson number 2, move forward or die. If you've ever been stuck, you know how heavy that feeling can be. And I'm not talking about just physical exhaustion. I'm talking about that mental fog, that emotional sludge, that moment where the fire's gone and everything just feels hollow and dead. I've lived through it. And the lesson that pulled me out didn't come from a self-help book. It came from the land, from watching how nature moves, specifically how rivers carve canyons. That's where this second lesson was born. move forward or die. Years ago, I'd hit a wall. It was a season that nearly broke me. I was grinding 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, trying to grow my gym, build a reputation, provide for my family, and just keep everything together. But that's the part people don't talk about. Success can burn you out just as fast as failure. From the outside, things looked fine. Clients were getting results, business was growing, but inside, I was toast. No energy, no clarity, no drive. I'd get up, go through the motions, try to train, try to coach, but there was no spark left. I felt like I was drowning in sameness. I was paralyzed by the pressure to keep going while silently wondering if I had anything left in the tank. And that season was one of the lowest I've been through. And I'll be honest, I didn't bounce back with some grand reinvention or magical mindset shift. What saved me was much simpler. One morning I was hiking, listening for bugles, and I stopped on a ridge where I could see a river, and it was cut down through the bottom of a canyon. And I just sat down watching it, and it hit me. That river didn't wait for perfect conditions. It didn't freeze up when the path got rocky. It didn't panic when it hit resistance. It just kept going. It didn't matter what got in the way. Rocks, trees, weather, none of it stopped the flow. It adapted, it bent, it shifted. It kept cutting through. Not because it was strong, but because it was consistent. And that's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to wait for motivation anymore. I wasn't going to wait to feel the showing up. I was going to move. So I started simple. I got my cardio in every morning. Nothing crazy. I lifted every day. Nothing fancy. I cleaned up my food, not strict, but disciplined. Focused on consistency, not perfection. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I didn't post about it. I didn't try to build momentum. I was just one foot in front of the other day after day. And after a few weeks, the fog began to lift. The burnout didn't just vanish overnight, but the grip it had on me started to loosen, and I started remembering who I was. Not because I fought harder, but because I moved. So here's the backcountry truth. Stagnation kills. This lesson hits hard in the backcountry too. You ever sit on a ridge and watch the elk disappear into the next drainage, but convince yourself maybe they'll come back? You ever stay in a dead zone for 3 days hoping something changes instead of pulling up camp and chasing new sign? I've done both. And every time I paid the price. Wasted time, wasted energy, wasted opportunity. We only get this season once a year. It's short. Because in elk hunting, just like in life, hope is not a strategy. The weather changes, the thermals shift, the herds move. And if you don't move with them, you get left behind. Here's how this lesson should shift your hunting mindset. If you haven't seen fresh sign in 24 hours, maybe it's time to move. If the elk aren't responding, change your position, a tactic, not just your calling. If the weather shifts, adapt your approach. Don't stay frozen in a plan that's no longer valid. If you're mentally drained, take one tactical step, not 10. Recenter with action, not just overthinking and dwelling. Momentum in the backcountry is everything. You don't need to blow up the mountain. You just cover 100 yards of good ground. Take your time. Glass a new angle. Push to that next bench. Do something, because movement creates information, and information leads to opportunity. This one's just as relevant when you're not wearing camo. If you're in a season where motivation's dried up, forget about feelings. Try to find your rhythm. Don't wait to feel strong to start training. Start training when you're weak to feel strong. Don't wait for clarity. Take one small action and let the clarity come from momentum. Don't wait for passion. Passion is often the reward of consistent effort, not the prerequisite for it. Start with 5 minutes. Start with one better meal. Start with a 10-minute walk. Start with showing up early instead of late. Start anywhere, but don't stay stuck, because the longer you stay still, the harder it is to move. You don't need a breakthrough. You need movement. One step, one decision, one action that proves to yourself you're not done yet. The river carves the canyon not because it's powerful, but because it never stops moving, and neither should you. Lesson number 3 I want to share with you is to wait with purpose. Let's talk about something most hunters struggle with, especially bow hunters: waiting. In a world that's obsessed with speed, fast skills, fast success, fast gratification, learn how to wait. It's learning how to wait. It feels counterintuitive. It feels wrong sometimes. But out in the wild, patience isn't a luxury. It's a weapon. And it's one most guys don't know how to use. Here's the 60-yard test. I'll never forget this moment. Archery elk season, I was deep in a drainage where I'd heard a bull bugling 2 mornings in a row. I'd worked in quietly, my wind was right, cover was thick, and there he was, 60 yards away, quartering away, feeding slowly uphill. I had a small window. I could have drawn, probably could have forced it, but he was on the edge. You could see it in his body language. His head was up more than usual. His ears were swiveling. There's just tension in the way that he moved. Everything in me screamed, take the shot. But something deeper said, wait. So I did. 10 long minutes. My heart's pounding. My muscles are burning. I'm breathing slow. It feels like an hour. And then he suddenly turned and worked kind of in my direction. And all of a sudden, he was quartering broadside, 28 yards, good angle. He was calm, and that arrow passed clean through him, double lung. I don't remember how long I sat there after the shot. It wasn't adrenaline. It was clarity, because in that moment, the lesson hit me. Waiting with purpose isn't weakness. It's strategy. Let's be clear. This isn't about hesitation, but strategic stillness, that's something else entirely. Most guys either rush the moment or freeze up in indecision. But when you've prepared, when you've studied behavior, when you've put in the work, you earn the right to be still with intention. That's what I've learned. There's a big difference between waiting because you're scared and waiting because you know the moment will get better. One's passive, one's predatory. Here's how this applies directly to hunting. When a bull hangs up at 80 yards, maybe you don't push. Let him make the mistake. When you've got wind in your favor and he's feeding towards you, let it develop. If you're at full draw and the shot angle isn't perfect, don't release out of pressure. If your setup is good and he's unaware, trust your positioning. The best shots I've made in my life weren't the fastest. They were the ones where I waited 10 to 15 seconds longer than I wanted to. And most of the blown shots, they came from forcing it, from panic, from wanting it too bad. Discipline wins. And sometimes that discipline looks like holding tight and letting the situation come to you. This one's not just about elk. I've applied this same mindset in some of the biggest decisions of my life. There were business opportunities that looked flashy, quick revenue, fast exposure, but something felt off. I waited, I passed, and months later, I was grateful I did. Same with personal decisions, relationships, moves, even hiring. We live in a culture that tells you to move fast, take every shot, don't miss your moment. But real success, long-term wins, they come from waiting for the right shot, not just any shot. Waiting with purpose in real life looks like not jumping at every opportunity, but filtering for the right alignment. Not forcing results, but trusting the process you've committed to. Not chasing validation, but letting your work speak over time. Whether it's marriage, parenting, business, or personal growth, the same rule applies. Stillness isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's what allows you to act decisively when it matters most, instead of constantly reacting to pressure. It's what separates guys who flinch from guys who finish. That bull at 60 yards taught me something I still carry. When you're prepared, when you're positioned, and when the opportunity almost feels right, don't rush it. Don't let impatience steal a perfect moment, because sometimes the best thing you can do is hold. Bow at your side, heart steady, eyes clear, breath slow. Wait with purpose. And when it's time to act, act with everything you've got. Lesson number 4 is all about learning how to adapt or get left behind. If there's one thing the backcountry will beat into your skull over and over again, it's this. Your plan doesn't matter as much as your ability to adapt. I don't care how good your e-scouting was. I don't care how dialed your gear is. I don't care how ready you thought you were. The mountain doesn't care. The elk don't care. And if you're not willing to pivot, you're done. This is the 4th lesson the wild has taught me, and it's one of the most important. The most dangerous phrase in hunting, but this plan should have worked. I've said it, you've said it, every hunter I know has whispered it under their breath after a blown setup or a dead silent morning. But here's the truth. Plans are fragile. You spend months on onX, Google Earth, topo overlays, running your trail cameras, looking at reports, reading forums, watching the weather patterns. You finally draw the tag, you load up the truck, you hike in, and it's empty. No sign, no elk, nothing moving. Or you find elk, but the thermals betrayed you. The wind switches, your pressure moves them over the ridge, or they just flat out don't act the way like you expected. And if you're stuck on your plan, you're going to waste valuable time trying to force something that's already dead. Out in the wild, there's one rule: adapt or get left behind. I remember one particular archery hunt, I dialed in this bench above a north-facing slope, water source below, bedding on top, travel corridor right in the middle. It was a textbook setup. I'd been watching it for weeks. Opening morning, I hiked in well before daylight. Everything felt good. By noon, still nothing. As I got to moving around, there was no fresh sign. There were no rubs, no wallows, no sound, no movement. It'd been dead for a couple of weeks. Now, old me would have waited out for 2 more days, convinced they were there just somewhere nearby. But experience kicked in, and I knew I had to change something. So I pulled camp, dropped into a totally different drainage 2 miles over, and I started fresh. That night, I glassed up a herd just inside the timberline, watched where they fed, shadowed them at a distance the next morning. I killed a bull a couple days later. Not because I was smarter or talented or the best elk hunter, but because I was willing to move. And if you want to kill more elk, you have to learn how to flex in the moment. Here's what that actually looks like. If you're not seeing fresh sign, stop hoping and relocate. If the wind isn't right, don't force the setup. Back out, circle, come in from a new angle. If elk pressure is too high, push deeper or find an overlooked, piece of terrain. If your calling isn't getting responses, shut up and listen. Change your cadence, change your timing. Maybe go silent. Adapting isn't just about moving around. It's about reading the room. It's about letting go of your ego long enough to realize the mountains, they're not going to change for you. You have to change for them. The bigger lesson, life doesn't care about your old plan. This principle applies off the mountain just as much. When I first opened Transforming Strength, my gym, I had this vision of what my daily life would look like. Heavy training, long hours, deep focus, extreme discipline. And for a while, it worked. It was exactly what I needed. But life changes. I became a dad, then I became the father of teenagers, then I became the father of a granddaughter. My priorities shifted. My energy shifted. The structure I used to thrive in, it started breaking down. At first, I fought it. I tried to force the old routine into a new season of life, and it nearly cost me everything. Eventually, I had to face the same truth I've learned in the backcountry. You can't take last season's map into this season's terrain. If you want to keep showing up, you've got to evolve. Here's what adaptation looks like beyond the hunt. You stop clinging to the version of yourself from 5 years ago. You stop measuring progress by old standards that no longer apply. You stop forcing routines that don't serve your current season of life. You let go of perfection and replace it with precision. That was a tough one for me. Sometimes adaptation means backing off intensity to preserve longevity. Sometimes it means changing how you lead your business so you can lead your family. Sometimes it means owning that what got you here won't get you to where you want to be. Look, this doesn't mean you're soft. It doesn't mean you've lost your edge. It means you're wise enough to pivot when the terrain demands it. Just like the bull elk changes his patterns after pressure. Just like the herd shifts elevation based on temperature and forage. Just like the land itself transforms with the seasons. Strength isn't in holding your ground all the time. It's in knowing when to shift your footing. The guys who make it on the mountain and in life aren't always the ones with the best plan. They're the ones who can abandon the plan the moment the terrain says, try again. That's not quitting. That's wisdom. That's presence. That's backbone. Don't get romantic about your strategy. Get committed to the outcome and adjusting accordingly. Because in the wild, if you refuse to adapt, you're already done. All right. Lesson 5. Nothing is given. Let's finish with the one lesson that ties everything else together. The mountain owes you nothing. Not a shot, not a bull, not even a bugle. You can do everything right. Train year-round, scout relentlessly, dial your bow, hike 10 miles in, get your wind perfect, and still come home empty-handed. And you know what? That's exactly how it should be. Because if you're chasing guarantees, you're in the wrong place. And if you're hunting for validation, you're going to break. One of the longest, hardest elk seasons of my life was also one of the most transformational. I hunted for almost 60 straight days that year. Early mornings, late nights, miles stacked on miles, constant adjustments, so many different spots. I ran into elk consistently, had over 18 very solid encounters, and I blew every one. Bad angles, gusting wind, timing was off, mental errors, fatigue, inexperience, you name it. It was humbling, frustrating, mentally brutal. But I didn't quit. I didn't back out. I didn't cut corners or make excuses. Every day I packed in. Every day I hunted hard. On day 61, October 31st, Halloween, it finally came together. Perfect shot, perfect recovery, hard-earned bull on my back. Not because the mountain cut me a break, but because I kept showing up when it didn't. We live in a world that's conditioned us to expect returns. Put in the work, get the result. Swipe the card, get the product. Follow the steps, get the win. But elk hunting doesn't care about your formula, and neither does life. This is not a transaction. It's a process. And the value isn't just in the outcome, it's in what it requires of you along the way. Every mile you hike, every decision you make under pressure, every mental reset after a blown stalk or loss. That's the gold. That's the growth. That's the stuff that sticks. Most hunters burn out because they put all their worth in the outcome. They think success is measured in antlers, meat, and grip and grins. But the truth is, what the hunt gives you is who you become because of it. The discipline to train when no one's watching. The humility to fail publicly and keep showing up. The patience to stay engaged when things go quiet. The grit to outlast the storm when it's easier to pack out. That is success. Not just punching a tag, but building the kind of man who's worthy of one. Life doesn't hand out tags either. This lesson has echoed through every corner of my life. When I lost my son to suicide, I wasn't prepared. Nothing in life equips you for that. But when the pain hit, when everything in me wanted to crawl into a hole, I remembered what the mountain had already taught me. You don't earn peace, strength, or clarity by wishing for them. You earn them by walking straight into the pain and refusing to quit. That loss changed me. It broke me in so many ways that'll never be fixed. But it also strengthened me in others. It taught me that nothing is guaranteed. Not life, not love, not another season. So when I wake up every day, I do it with that awareness. This breath, this family, this business, this hunt, None of it is owed, but all of it is worth the fight. If you want a strong marriage, earn it. Show up when you're tired. Apologize first. Lead with presence. If you want to be respected by your kids, earn it. Model grit. Show consistency. Teach by example. If you want to build a business, earn it. Bleed for it. Sacrifice it. Adapt for it. If you want to live with confidence, earn it through your actions, not your affirmations. Because out in the wild and back home, the world honors effort, not intentions. That bull I killed on day 61, he was far from my biggest, but it meant more than many of the others because it required more resilience, more faith, more grind, more heart. And that's the lesson I want to leave with you. When nothing is given, everything is earned. And when it's earned, it changes you. A few closing thoughts. Let the wild rebuild you. If you've made it this far, listening, reflecting, letting these words hit home, then you already understand something most people never will. The wild isn't just a place you go. It's a place that changes you, if you let it. It's not comfort. It's not convenient. And it sure as heck doesn't hand out shortcuts. But that's the point. Because when you strip away the distractions, when you're cold, tired, hungry, sore, you find out who you really are. And more importantly, who you're becoming. These lessons weren't theories, they were earned. I didn't pull these out of thin air. I didn't sit down one day and decide to write something poetic. These 5 lessons were forged in real pain, on real hunts, through real storms, physical and emotional. And they stuck because they worked. Because when life got hard, when I didn't know what to do next, when nothing else made sense, I came back to these truths. Endure the storm. Don't break just because it's hard. Move forward or die. Progress doesn't wait for motivation. Wait with purpose. Patience is a weapon when it's anchored in trust. Adapt or get left behind. Your ego won't get you far. Your flexibility will. Nothing is given. Earn it every single time. Let this be more than a podcast. Look, I appreciate you being here, but if all you do is nod your head and move on, this episode didn't do its job. So here's what I'm asking. Let this hit deeper. Let this shape how you prepare for your next hunt. Let it influence how you parent, how you train, how you respond when life blindsides you. Because this isn't just about elk hunting. It's about building a man who can take hits and keep standing. A man who can lead with integrity, grind with purpose, and stay the course when it gets heavy. People ask me all the time, what keeps you going back into the mountains year after year? And yeah, part of it's definitely the elk. Part of it's definitely the adventure. And part of it is definitely the challenge. But honestly, I go back to remember who I am, to recalibrate, to get quiet, to sit in a place where truth gets loud again. Because out in the wild with no cell service, no noise, nothing to impress, nobody else to worry about, you either break or you grow. And I'd rather grow. Live relentless in the wild and in life. If you're in a hard season right now, good. You're being forged. If the winds are against you, good. That means you're climbing. If life feels quiet, like you're not seeing results, good. That means you're still in the game. Keep going, keep moving, keep learning. And when it gets hard, and it will, don't flinch. Remember what the mountain taught you. Because out there in the wild, you don't just hunt, you rebuild. Before I close, I want to remind you, Team Backbone is where these lessons go deeper. It's more than a membership. It's a tribe of men who live relentless, who train for the hunt and for life, who aren't just chasing bulls, but becoming better men along the way. So if this episode hit home for you, if you're ready to go beyond content and into commitment, visit backboneunlimited.com and join the team. Let's sharpen the edge together. And whatever else you do, live relentless.